I am 88 years old, and I have spent more time thinking about money than I care to admit. I chased it. I fought for it. I lost sleep over it. I sacrificed things for it that I can never get back. And now, sitting here in the quiet of my final years, I want to tell you something about money that nobody told me when I was young and hungry, and convinced that wealth was the answer to everything I was looking for. It wasn't. It never was. And the sooner you understand that, the more of your life you get to actually keep. I grew up with very little. My father worked with his hands from before sunrise until after dark, and still struggled to put enough on the table. I watched my mother stretch every penny like it was made of rubber. I watched my parents argue in hushed voices late at night about numbers that never added up. And I made a promise to myself when I was just a boy. I would never feel that fear. I would make enough money that fear could never find me again. That promise shaped the next 50 years of my life, and I kept it. I built a business from nothing. I worked harder than most people around me were willing to work. I made the money. I hit the numbers I had always dreamed about. And I want to tell you what happened when I got there. When I finally crossed the line, I had been running toward my entire life. Nothing changed. The fear I had been running from did not disappear. It simply changed its shape. Instead of fearing not having enough, I began fearing losing what I had. Instead of worrying about bills, I worried about markets and investments, and whether the people around me liked me for who I was or for what I was worth. The finish line I had been chasing my entire life turned out to be painted on water. Every time I reached it, it moved further away. I want to tell you about my brother Thomas. Thomas and I grew up in the same house, ate the same meals, wore the same handed-down clothes. But Thomas and I went in very different directions when we became men. I went after money with everything I had. Thomas became a school teacher. He taught children how to read for 37 years in the same small town where we grew up. He drove a modest car. He lived in a modest house. He never owned anything that would impress anyone at a dinner party. I used to pity Thomas. I am not proud of that, but it is the truth. I looked at his simple life and I thought he had settled. I thought he had given up. I thought the gap between his life and mine was proof that I had chosen the right path. Thomas died 3 years before me, and at his funeral, I sat in the back of a church that was completely full. His former students came from across the country, grown men and women with children of their own, standing in the aisle because there were no seats left, weeping openly for a school teacher who never made much money, but somehow changed the course of their entire lives. Person after person stood up and said, Thomas was the reason they believed in themselves. Thomas was the reason they didn't give up. Thomas was the reason they learned to love reading, to love learning, to love life itself. I sat in that church and I thought about my own funeral. I thought about who would come. I thought about what they would say. And for the first time in my life, I understood what my brother had that all my money could never buy. He had meaning, real, deep, lasting meaning, the kind that fills a church long after you are gone. Money had given me comfort, but comfort and meaning are not the same thing. I had confused them for most of my life. Here is what I know now about money that I wish someone had whispered to me when I was 25 years old and just getting started. Money is a tool, nothing more and nothing less. It is a hammer, and a hammer is extraordinarily useful when you need to drive a nail. But no matter how many hammers you collect, no matter how beautiful or expensive they are, you cannot use them to build love. You cannot use them to buy back the years you missed. You cannot hold them in the dark when you are frightened. You cannot take them with you when you go. The richest man I ever knew died alone in a hospital room with nobody beside him. His children had grown distant over the years, pushed away by a father who was always working, always traveling, always prioritizing the next deal over the next school play or birthday dinner. He had more money than he could ever spend, and not a single person in the room when his eyes closed for the last time. I stood at his graveside with a small group of business associates and I thought, is this what winning looks like? I wasted years worrying about money I already had. checking accounts I didn't need to check, losing sleep over market fluctuations that corrected themselves within months. I let the anxiety of wealth steal from me just as surely as the fear of poverty had when I was a boy. I was so busy protecting what I had built that I forgot to live inside it. My wife Catherine used to say to me, and I hear her voice so clearly even now, she used to say, "My love, we have enough. We have always had enough. When are you going to let yourself feel that?" I would smile and nod and go right back to my desk. I thought she didn't understand the way the world worked. Now I know she understood it better than I ever did. Enough is not a number. I spent my whole life believing that enough was a number, that once I hit a certain figure, once I crossed a certain threshold, I would finally be able to exhale. But enough is not something you find in a bank account. Enough is something you find inside yourself. It is a decision, it is a practice, and it is available to you right now, today, regardless of what your bank account says. I am not telling you that money doesn't matter. It does. Security matters. Being able to care for your family matters. Not lying awake at night worrying about rent matters. I am not romanticizing poverty. I lived close enough to it as a child to know there is nothing romantic about it. But there is a line between enough and obsession. And most people in pursuit of wealth cross that line without ever noticing and spend the rest of their lives on the wrong side of it. So here is what I want to ask you, gently, from the softness of my 88 years. What are you trading for the money you are chasing? What moments are you missing? What relationships are you neglecting? What version of yourself are you postponing until you hit the number? Because I promise you, with every ounce of honesty I have left in me, the number will not deliver what you are hoping it will. The feeling you are chasing is not hiding inside a bigger salary or a better investment portfolio. It is hiding in plain sight, in the ordinary moments you keep rushing past on your way to somewhere more important. Call your brother, have dinner with your children without checking your phone, take the holiday you have been postponing, sit with your aging parents and ask them about their lives while there is still time to hear the answers. These are not things you do after you make enough money. These are the things that make a life worth remembering. I think about Thomas often. I think about that church full of people who loved him not for what he owned, but for what he gave. And I think about all the years I spent chasing something I already had in the people around me, if only I had been present enough to recognize it. Money will come and go, it always does. But the years, the soft, quiet, ordinary, beautiful years, those do not come back. Spend them wisely. I love you. Now go home.